Hey, Chelsea fans. Welcome to another episode of the Chelsea Current English podcast, where we try to get in fans from across the globe, Chelsea fans, and get their perspectives on what the squad is doing right now and where our season could uh, go. So, today was a pretty eventful day. We played one of our least favorite neighbors in London, and suffice to say, it wasn't the best of performances or the best of results. But again, preseason isn't something that you'd read too much into. But there were, certain passages of play, certain conclusions that people could draw. But before we get into it, let me introduce our guests. So we have all the way from Brazil, uh, an all-round legend and one of the most positive and knowledgeable fans that I've met on Twitter, Jessica Frota. Jess, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure, and I'm very honored to be here.
Likewise, thank you. And yeah, so before I introduce Nick, he was one of the first Chelsea content creators that I interacted with on Twitter. So all the way back in 2019, when Frank Lampard was still here, I was trying to find people who saw football and idolize Frank the same way. And that Chelsea podcast was my reference point, just to say. So it was the only piece of Chelsea content I consumed for a long, long time. And thank you for making the TL back then a better place and continuing to do so, Nick. So thank you so much for joining and welcome to the stream.
Oh, cheers for having me on, man. It's been long overdue. I know we've talked for a while now, so it's nice to actually, do something together. And yeah, this should be good fun.
Awesome, and hopefully we get to do this a lot more often. And yep, so bringing in our resident tactical expert and all-round legend, CFC Central. Welcome to the stream again, and he's becoming a regular on the show. Hopefully, we can keep it this way. So.
I mean, thank you so much. I was just watching Stranger Things. I was not supposed to be here, but Jessica and Nick were here, and I thought like this is too good an opportunity not to talk to them again. So, thanks for having me short notice, and yeah, burning my Sunday nights for you. You better pamper me.
Got it. Send me your address. We're sending something over on Swiggy.
Nah,
Thank
I
you.
was just kidding, bro. Thanks.
And yep, Central hype in the chat already here for Central's tactical masterclass. And yep, let me hype up the other guests as well. Uh, Follow both of these guys on Twitter. So I'll link Jess and Nick's Twitter handles in the description. Some of the most balanced and knowledgeable takes. It isn't Twitter noise. I can vouch for them, and do go ahead and drop these guys a follow. And so let's start things off. Jess, I'll come to you. I was too tired to watch today's match. It was pretty early in the day for me, but I know you watched through it and you have certain outtakes from the match as well. Uh, there's a lot of negativity on the timeline, and some of it I think is justified because we didn't match Arsenal when it comes to intensity. Tactically, we were off. So, what are your major outtakes from the match?
I think I don't like to be overly positive or baselessly positive, but I don't think it's fair to analyze yesterday's match because it was yesterday for me. Yesterday's match on its own, because if you go to that match and you just watch the 90 minutes, you say, "Well, that's abysmal. That's awful. It looks completely disjointed." But personally, that match didn't reveal anything that I didn't already knew. It didn't reveal anything that I don't think defends. I mean, there are clear issues that need to be addressed within the squad, and I think we're going to be talking extensively about them. So I don't want to get into it now, but I think we have to take that match given the circumstances. I was talking to Ollie Glenville on Twitter. I think a lot of you may know him.
Yep.
He was pointing out how we didn't even manage to put our best 11 playing together because this preseason has just been about running around. So you haven't even kind of passed the threshold of that fitness thing to go to be able to talk about tactics or to be able to talk about other things.
Oh, yeah.
What it showed for me is that we are not ready for the season to start.
Yeah.
Yet we played just like 3 games. That's not a lot. I think Daily on Twitter put it a table content of the number of matches the other our rivals have played in, and if you go to Arsenal, they dominated us. That's a fact. But
True,
they've been playing together for a long time. They added new players early in, and we just came from sanctions and change of ownership, and we knew we were going to be behind in the window. So I don't want to overreact to it, like based on the performances. Yes, it was poor, but as I said, did it show anything that we didn't already know? personally, I don't think so. I like to look at the positive, and the biggest positive for me was Koulibaly. He was fantastic, monster defender, showed glimpse of what he's going to be able to do for us this season. So I don't want to have any judgments until all of our business is done. In that sense, I can analyze better, I think, what it is to expect for the season. I'm not going into this season expecting any trophies or anything like that. I don't think that would be fair. Even though emotionally I want it, and as a fan, that's
True, yeah.
what you're gonna strive for. That's normal. But yeah, I think in terms of the game, very poor performances all around, unfortunately. All I can hope now is that we really push on this last 2 weeks. Maybe we can get some more deals done, and hopefully we can add some indoors matches as well, like friendly matches, because I think we only have Udinese left.
True, yeah.
I'm
This
not
is
sure
one
that'll
match
be good enough.
for sure. And let me take this gap to welcome Arvind Bro to the stream as well. Arvind Bro is our regular host for Monday Night War, which is a program that happens on every Monday, obviously. And yep, uh, great guy and bleeds blue and Germany fan as well. So if there are any Germany fans, do drop Mr. Arvind Bro a follow in on Twitter, and welcome Bro to the stream.
Thank you, Abba. Actually, it's not a good time to be a German fan and Chelsea fan together because
True,
basically I
true.
have to support this Werner and Havertz for a long time,
Yep.
and I'm honestly fed up with both those guys.
Yep. I think we have our frustrations with both. So, but hopefully we can either find solutions in the market, or we find some systemic or tactical solutions. Central, I'll come to you next on this. So, uh, just sort of summed up pretty succinctly what we saw today. And you had also put a tweet out around how many games Arsenal had played, how they've got minutes in their legs. They're a lot fitter than we are for sure. Were there any other observations that you drew from the match apart from this?
I think Jessica is absolutely spot on in terms of coming into this juncture of the season, not just like with minutes in your legs, but enough rest to be able to recuperate. I think we've had a pretty brutal schedule. Being now associated with LA Dodgers, obviously we had to go to Los Angeles while these guys got to start in Baltimore, which was pretty close to Orlando. We've had to travel cross country, and we've only got 3 games in our legs, while Arsenal have started their preseason at home. Then they went to Germany, and then they've played 3 games in the US. So for them, it's ideal prep. I think considering that they've also made their signings very quickly, they've able to sort of assimilate all these new people into their lineup, understanding what Arteta expects from them. Jesus was sort of like done very early.
Yep.
I
He was
think
great
in
today. Yeah.
comparison, yeah, he was very good, and he's been great like throughout preseason. Against Everton, he was really good. Again today, I think he did really, really well in terms of his movement. But yeah, I think in just terms of being at the same intensity, in terms of being at least on par with fitness levels, I think we're still 2 3 games short. The ideal circumstances would see us again play Udinese, and then somewhere between Italy and the start of the season, maybe get 30 60 minutes of an internal preseason friendly between the squad, and try to get minutes up, because you need to get at least 45 to 60 match minutes before we go up against Everton. So I think it's going to be a pretty difficult run up to the season, but I think it's a little overblown. I think it will take probably like the first or the second game of the preseason, sorry, of the new season, before we come back to the kind of intensity we were playing last season. Tactically, I don't think that it would be right to analyze a game when we're half fit or like 3 quarters fit. And obviously, we've not played the same kind of midfield pairings that we're supposed to for a long period
True.
of
Yep.
time. Kovacic and I think Jorginho are now first choice in central midfield, but I don't think they've played together for too many minutes in preseason.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think it would take a little bit of time. I think personnel wise, we still have to get the balance right. Koulibaly was incredible. I mean, we obviously knew he was going to come in and create a huge impact. So just getting those 45 minutes in, like 30 20 minutes in for him would be a big plus for me. But I think what worries me the most is that we've seen the same kind of mistakes being made in attack. We are sort of not seeing a set system in place. Now this was supposed to be Tuchel's first proper preseason with his attackers, and he's had these guys for 2 years now. So I expected
Yep.
some kind of um, at least a brief or a blueprint to go by, some kind of um, you know at least new or
Patterns.
any, yes,
Yeah.
any kind of ideas, patterns, any kind of ideas to sort of break down the front line into like making movement or making sure that people feed off you or you're able to feed off other people. It's a little disjointed for me, so that raises serious questions. And if we want to move on attackers and move on to new signings, who do we go for? Because the market is again very bleak in terms of finding good attackers.
True.
So
Yep.
yeah, I think those are the issues for me right now. I think I'm not too worried about the result. I think it is just getting minutes into your legs, and the moment we are sharper, and the moment five games into the preseason, I think we would be as quick as Arsenal. But yeah, attack is a major concern for me.
Makes sense. Nick, anything to add on that front with regards to our preseason? So,
Yeah, look, I know you kind of said earlier about people overreacting, and I completely agree. Look, I haven't watched any minutes of preseason. I've not stayed up to watch them because I've just got other interests, other things I like doing with my time. But obviously, I still keep an eye on it, and performance results are not ideal. But I'm not going to get myself worked up about it. As I said earlier, I've got 9 months to really lose my crap with Chelsea, and that
yeah,
starts at Everton on August the 6th, and it ends with Newcastle at home on May the 28th. During that time, I'll happily get angry at them, annoyed, frustrated with what's going on. But until then and after then, I'm just going to be chill because just you support a football club and it takes a lot out of you. This part should really be the relatively stress-free part before we get into a hard yard. So just obviously have some concerns, of course, but don't probably lose it as much as some people are doing because at the end of the day, it's pre-season. We're not where we'd like to be, sure, but we've still got time. And at the end of the day, start asking real questions when the actual season starts.
makes sense. And I think Tom just highlighted a comment about the team not being cut out for four at the back. Uh, I guess so because we had everyone wanted Mason and Conor Gallagher to be at eight, but definitely with it being preseason is a factor, but there were a bit of on the ball deficiencies, right? I'm not too sure what the exact right mix is there in midfield. It's something that we will cover when we discuss midfield in detail. I'll come to Arvind bro next, as in this game in
Actually, I
preseason
would
again.
I would
You
like to
Yeah,
continue about the same comment, Heba.
go ahead, bro.
Right
Yeah,
now, we are blaming we are saying that Chelsea is not apt for playing in a back four. But have we used the proper players on their proper position when we played this back four? Look, Jorginho, we know when he's pressed upon, he's a defensive liability, and he cannot play without a proper defensive support with him. Either use him with Kante, or actually Tuchel has missed a golden opportunity for using Ampadu yesterday. I would have
yeah,
deployed Ampadu if we are going for a back four. So until we are using the proper players for that system, I don't know whether we can make a judgment on that.
makes sense. And we'll definitely dive into the details when it comes to
Can I just add one thing specifically to
yeah,
from yesterday's match? There were a lot of talks about 4-2-3-1s or 4-3-3. The majority of the game, and Sam and any of you guys, obviously, correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I got the impression we were playing a 4-2-2-2. So for me, there was no width. Like you didn't see Stelling running to the wings. It was very like channeled, and I think that was one of the main problems. So I don't even think we saw a 4-3-3, even with Georgian. I don't think that happened yet. So I don't know if it's a thing about Tuchel not trusting the personnel for this particular formation or not. I guess we'll see once the transfer window shuts and with the players that he has.
I think Jessica, I think you made a great point because a lot of people were confused with what exactly he was trying. But I mean, this is just my interpretation on the situation. But when he did play a 4-2-2-2 at PSG, it was Neymar playing the Sterling role. It was somebody who was allowed to be in a withdrawn role in sort of like central positions. And when we've seen him play, in those middle zones, when we've seen him play false nine for Manchester City. This game I was watching against Burnley, he creates a lot more threat centrally. His runs, he's able to cut on his right, on his left. So maybe it was Tuchel's attempt to see, like, if I deploy him in a Neymar kind of position where he's able to drop deep, where he's able to pull people out from their defensive positions, how are you going to actually benefit in terms of like the front line? Is a Kai Havertz going to be able to make runs? Is a Timo Werner going to be able to capitalize? So I think it was a bit of a tactical experiment, but it is a tried and tested system for him, and also a role that he sort of probably sees for Sterling. Maybe it'll change if we go through a 4-3-3 or a conventional wide role for him. But right now it was just testing out how he sort of fits into that position.
Sam, in this Burnley game, was Sterling playing with KDB, as in were they the two people up top? Or am
No,
I
no, I don't think he. So KDB, I think, was rested for that one, and
okay?
he was false nine, and I think there was I don't remember the exact person, but he actually played by himself. He wasn't really, shifting positions to either wings. He was actually deployed as
Okay.
a central presence, so he was dropping as deep as central midfield, linking up, then running at the defense. So a conventional false nine role, and he did really well. I think he scored 2 goals and he got 1 assist in a 3-0 win. So I think that's a good performance.
Makes sense, but again, volume of chances the City creates is something to dream about. So yeah. Yep, I think we've covered most of what inferences we could draw from the preseason match. Right. Let's jump straight into the agenda for today, which is sort of looking at the squad and trying to find what the best mix is for next year, who we should keep, who people think would leave. And Jess, we'll start with you again. So central defense is something that it's been debated endlessly on the timeline for sure. It's we saw Fabrizio tweeting that Cole was going to leave, and then that started off this entire debate about how many centre backs does Tuchel actually need. There were talks about us signing Kimpembe, which have died out. Kunde is in the news, and it alternates from day to day. One day is going to Barca, next day is coming to us. So transfer news again is a lot to take in, but at least from your point of view, right? Who do you think the best choice front three in defense is, considering we play a back three? And which youngsters do you want to see blooded into the squad from what we have right now? So
Youngsters for particularly for center backs, for center
for
back
centre
roles.
back,
Oh,
yep.
okay.
For centre back, yep.
Yeah, as you said, there was a lot of talk about adding 3 center backs, adding 2 center backs. There are people that think we should only add 1 center back. I personally don't have a choice for who we add because we've already gotten who I really wanted,
Koulibaly, yeah.
Koulibaly. Yeah, and I think he is a masterstroke for us because he's so comfortable on both sides. So it doesn't matter particularly if we get a left center back or a right center back because Koulibaly could do both. So I love Kunde a lot. I think he's a great player. I would love if we got him, but if we don't, I don't think it's the end of the world because we have Koulibaly. The story would be completely different if we didn't have him. So the perfect back three for me has to have Thiago Silva and Koulibaly, and then another person. With the players that we have now, and I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this probably, but with the players that we have now, I think Cowell is the best one, Levi Cowell. I think he's a fantastic player. I do. He's one that I really want to see integrated. However, his injuries, he didn't have a lot of injuries throughout his youth days, but last year he did get a lot of injuries, like small knocks and stuff throughout the season. And I also don't want to put the pressure on him to be a starter. I don't think that's necessarily fair. And I also worry about the injuries. So for me, particularly, I think it's clear we need to add another center back in. I know we have Trevor. I know we have Ampadu who can fulfill those roles. Those are 2 players that I would like to keep. But I think we need to get a center back in. Kunde is a possibility, but if not him, just get someone so we can move to other areas because I'm actually more concerned about other areas than the center back. I think our problem at center back will become an issue or can become an issue if we have injuries, a lot of injuries throughout the season, or if Thiago can play a lot of games or something like that. But theoretically, if you have a back three and 2 of those are Thiago Silva and Koulibaly, that doesn't have to be a major thing, at least in my view. But again, I reiterate, I would add another center back, and I don't think we need 2 center backs. I would like other positions first, but I think we need to add another one.
Makes perfect sense. And right off the top of your head, anyone you'd prefer for that one centre back role? As in, Jess, am I audible? Or I think you're on mute.
Yeah,
You're on
sorry,
mute.
I didn't hear you.
Yeah, yeah.
If I have
Just asking.
a preference
Yep.
for center back,
The yeah.
I think out of the options, because I really liked Bremer, he went to Juve.
Juve
So
sadly.
out
Yeah.
of the options, it would be Juice Koundé. I think he's the best option out there. I just don't think it would be the end of the world if we didn't get him. But I think we need to get
Exactly.
someone. Yeah.
Makes sense. And central, yep, coming straight next to you. And Nick, I'll probably redirect the same question to you right after as well. So, uh, a lot of the debate around the squad was we're looking at players who won't be as good as Colville in a couple of years, right? Which is definitely a fair assumption to make, considering the quality Colville has shown in the championship. And I know Central has created this amazing video. We'll try and link it in the description as well. And he's taken like 20 minutes to analyze Colville game by game and aspect by aspect of defensive as well as offensive play. But do you think that's a fair assumption to ask Tuchel to keep in mind something that could happen 2 years down the line, where he might not even be in the job? And yes, Andrew, I'll start with that first.
No, I think it's definitely, I think with the new owners, with the amount of money that he's been given, I think when you look at it in from a very rational perspective, I don't think you can say, you know what, nurture the youth. It's
Yeah,
probably not going to be his priority right now. So probably like getting Gallagher, getting Ampadu, getting Colville into the first team squad is not something that he's looking at, to be honest. He's just looking at trying to find short-term success, trying to make sure that the team is competitive, that we go far
yeah,
in cup competitions, because to be very honest, I feel like we are a team built for knockout competitions. We're not really a league winning kind of side just yet. Maybe we will be a couple of seasons down the line, hopefully this season. But yeah, I think it's just the way that he's set up. He's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders. He's been backed. He's openly said that Sterling is somebody that he wanted from day one. So he's got both his targets. Out of, if you get Kunde, it's going to be 3 out of 5. So he is definitely going to be under the microscope come this season. I do think that it's going to be the end of the world if we don't get Jules Kounde. I think he's arguably he's arguably like
makes
the
sense.
best progressive right centre back option out there. I really, really have seen. I mean, I do have a little bit of bias because of the amount of times that I've seen him play
Yeah,
the past 2 years. I've just been following him very closely. I think he's incredible. He offers an array of options on that right centre back role, and ironically, it was, we saw Aspie struggle there today, and we saw, Chalobah struggle there a little bit. So maybe right centre back is an option, sort of like poetic justice that it's calling out, saying that, it has to be fortified. And again, I don't see a option post Kunde that is as good at right centre back. Maybe you can play Koulibaly
Skriniar
there, but
maybe.
sorry.
Skriniar maybe.
No, I mean, I'm okay with Skriniar. I think he's all right. But in terms of like providing progression, in terms of the intelligence of how you move the ball from back to front, in terms of defending 1v1, it's a huge gap between Kunde and the next defender, especially if you're paying 70 million. I mean, why wouldn't I just pay like 55 million for Kunde and get it done with? So definitely at right centre back, he would be my preference. Again, I echo Jessica's sentiments. I think we just need one centre back. We don't need two. I think Ampadu, Colville, and Chalobah are more than enough cover if you're going for six centre backs for three roles. I mean, we don't even know if you're going to play a back three or back four. But I genuinely think it's okay to get one more and then direct funds to either a good central midfielder, because we know the situation now. Kante and Georgie are both on their last deals, so last year of their deals, so they might be running down their contracts. Jorginho's agent is again going to pipe up interest about
Yeah,
how he loves Juve and how Italian clubs love him and stuff like that. So with N'Golo, I don't really know what the deal is. I mean, he's on 290K a week. So somebody who gets injured very often is a world class player. What is the next step going to be? Do you pay him the same kind of wage? Do you ask him to take a pay cut? Would he take a pay cut if he gets a good offer from, say, a PSG or a Real Madrid? Those questions are still there. So maybe the best time to get, a starting central midfielder in, make sure that they're bedded in, make sure they're ready for next season, instead of just going next season and buying somebody and then again waiting for finding out how they fit into the entire squad. So that is again a major issue. And I think we do need one attacker, right? We genuinely need somebody who's a good chance creator from the right wing. I still am somebody who belongs to the Hakim Ziyech hive. I
Same,
genuinely
same,
think that
same.
he's a weapon that people would be sort of like underwhelmed by because of the sheer amount of high risk, high reward chances that he tries to create, and most of the times he ends up looking like he was doing nothing. But somebody who played, I think, 600, 700 minutes less and created nine big chances in the league. I mean, just one less than Mason Mount. It speaks volumes about the kind of threat that he offers from that position. So maybe if we don't get a good attacker, I would say keep Ziyech and figure out what to do after that, and say move on Timo Werner or one of Christian Pulisic or Callum Hudson-Odoi. Pulisic is not going to move, we know that by now, but maybe Hudson-Odoi because I haven't seen anything from him this preseason. So those decisions are also there. So I think it would be one behind, one midfield, and one forward before we start the season.
Makes sense. Nick, would love to get your thoughts here. I'm pretty sure our opinions are pretty close on what role Colwell should play in the squad. But again, whether you can ask Tuchel to look that far forward when it comes to player development, and do you think us chasing two centre backs is justified there?
Look, we've lost two centre backs, so I think it's pretty clear. Bare minimum, just maths. We need two. We've got one, so we need one more. But with that, you know, so hopefully we get Kunde. Hopefully, because this saga is like Ross and Rachel. The amount of times it's on and off. And to be fair, I'm kind of sick of it by now. Like I'm just fed up with it. So I just want it done. And also for Central, because he put that really good 20-minute video analysing him, and I don't want that to be, go to waste. Or so I kind of want him to sign. So that'd be good. But look, with Colwell, this is maybe why I think the actual structure upstairs is missing, which could hurt us. If we had a director of football and it's not all on Tuchel to sign all these players, and he could maybe be saying, we don't need this, we've got this person here. Whereas at the moment, all the power, all of it is on Tuchel. We're asking a lot of him, and he's not going to know a
Yes,
huge
yeah.
amount about Levi Colwell. He might know bits from like reports, whatever, but he's not going to have loads of in-depth detail, and he's got to ultimately look out for himself, because his duty is still at Chelsea to win. So when I saw links to Nathan Ake, I got it. It's a bit basic. It's a bit disappointing. It's also quite ironic that we'd potentially be losing a Cobham Academy graduate to bring back a former Cobham Academy graduate who we deemed not good enough 5 years ago. And we, who knows, in 5 years' time, we could see the same there. But it's one of those things where you look at it, if we stick with this back three and we say we get Kunde comes across the line, then you're looking at a back three of Kunde, Silva, Koulibaly. And then you've got someone like Trev who can slot in as well. And we've
Yep.
seen from his first season how well he's done. With Colwell, I think it's just give him a chance. Just give him a chance and see if you, because I think what would frustrate me and a lot of other people and people who know Colbert is you've got to give him a chance before you actually cast him off. If he gets preseason and Tuchel goes, you know what, you need a loan, and Levi's like, no, I don't need a loan, and then he goes, then okay, he goes. But it kind of not quite the same, but it almost reminds me almost a bit of Livramento last summer where he
Yep.
wouldn't sign a contract. He didn't train the first team. He was sent to reserves, and then he sold to Southampton. And if we'd at least given him preseason, given him a chance, and then decided, okay, no, then that makes the decision a bit easier. So look, we'd like to see Levi Colwell get an opportunity there. And look, I'm going to be brutally honest. We saw Malang Sarr get a lot of minutes last season. And
Yeah.
if Malang Sarr can get a lot of minutes in that Chelsea team, then I don't really see why Levi Colwell can't. I mean, Malang Sarr's loan spell hardly went great. He ended up in Porto's B team by the end of it. So I don't think, if we can give someone like him minutes, I don't see why someone like Colwell can't potentially get his minutes. We'll be playing a lot of games, and I said, we're not asking him to be a first choice starter, but you've just got to show him as a path, give him something to cling on to. And that's kind of why you've got to give him this chance in preseason, see what he does. Because again, circumstance and timing is a lot in football. If we'd not had a Euros
True.
last
Yep.
year, Trevor Chalobah may not be a Chelsea player because Rudiger was
Exactly.
aware
Yeah.
of the Euros, Christensen was aware of the Euros, Aspi was aware of the Euros, Silva might have had Copa America at the same time. I'm not quite sure. But you had all these players away, and Trev was, working. Tuchel had his eye firmly on him, and he got his chance, and he impressed, and then he ended up starring in the Super Cup, scoring his Premier League debut, and then bam, what have we got? We've got a player who's played however many games, started 2 cup finals against Liverpool for us, and he saved us 40 million there. And that's where you've just got to try and be smart. And it's why, unfortunately, kind of linked back to earlier, if we had that their structure in place, then maybe it makes it a bit easier because I understand, as frustrating as I can understand why Tuchel wanted someone like Nathan Ake because he knows the Premier League. Right now, he is better than Levi Colwell, and Tuchel's remit will be success. So I completely got that. But
Exactly. Yeah.
thankfully, the links went away. and we will just have to see on Colwell. But I would like to think there is a world where we can, he can have a Chelsea career and we can ease him in first season. He can learn off some brilliant defenders, get him enough minutes, because as we've seen with Malangsar last year, there should be enough minutes there in that squad. But yeah, ultimately we need that one more right centre back, because I think none of us really want to see Cesar Azpilicueta start too much this season. Given what we saw last year, we've probably all got a lot of love for him and he's a legend, etc. Won't say a bad word about him. But again, it's quite telling. I think he didn't start the FA Cup final last year. So again, it's one of those. If we can get that right centre back in, look, I'm not going to claim to be an expert on Jules Koundé. My Jules Koundé expertise comes from watching watching Central's 20-minute vid breakdown, and that's probably it. And then President Kimpembe, I only know from various memes on Twitter, so I can't really talk about him there. But ultimately, body and personnel wise, we do need that one more defender and that one more body there. So when we can focus on other areas of the pitch, because right now it's essentially replacing what we've lost, not actually really necessarily improving the squad apart from Raheem Sterling so far.
Makes sense. And I think a lot of frustrations that people have are when you look at players who wouldn't improve the first 11 straight off, right? So when it was Koulibaly, the whole fan base was like, "Get it done. This is exactly what we need," because it was raising the bar on our first 11. But when you look at other players, maybe who wouldn't exactly, transform us into something that would challenge Liverpool or Man City, I expect that to be our position, and I think that's a perfectly fair opinion, right, to have. Uh, Arvind bro, I'll come to you next. Again, similar questions. Ethan Ampadu played for Venezia. He played across the back line. He played in midfield. He played wherever the team needed him to play, and he's sort of doing that for us right now on tour as well. So he's played at centre back. On occasions, he's dropped into the number 6 role in midfield as well. Do you think he can be the guy who'll provide cover for Thiago Silva, considering he's almost 38 and he definitely won't play as much next year? So.
Uh, we have to consider that he is still a young guy. He can
True, yeah.
make mistakes, and that must not cost us that much. That's the main concern. But still, yesterday it was just a preseason game. Okay,
Yep.
we win, we lose, whatever. It's not going to matter on long term. So, as uh, mm, as we already mentioned, this Levy Colville, Ampadu might have been starting these matches. When they play, only we can give a proper analysis on how they can be, included in this team. So right now, look, I don't think it's an exact replacement for Silva. There are chances that Silva will be injured for maybe at least 25% of matches, because we have to consider his age also. So considering that, I don't know how much Ampadu can replace him. We need defensive. Uh, we are already going behind Conte. I don't know when that saga will end, but definitely we need reinforcement on that particular position.
Makes sense. And yep, that's one position I'm really interested in, because Thiago Silva, expecting him to play the amount of games that he did last season, I think he was running on fumes towards the end. So how we manage his game time and keep him fresh for big games this year is something I'm definitely very, very interested in. Just bringing it straight back to you. I'll pop up 3 names right here. Not the obvious ones are definitely we're not going to be discussing, so we'll just look at the 3 debated names on the TL so far. So Colville, Sar, and Aspilicueta. Keep, loan, sell straight off.
Cole keep, Sar either loan or sell, and Aspi, I love him, but I think it would be best for him to move on. And a lot of it comes from the fact that I think he wants to go. So I think he's earned his right to move.
Exactly,
So
yeah.
I think, yeah. So that
The
that would
man
be
wants to go to Barca. He deserves to leave on his own terms. He's given us everything, won everything with the club. So if he wants to leave, definitely on his own terms. Central, straight to you next. I think I know the answer, but still, yeah, go for it.
With Colville, I think it would be keep. But if Tuchel sort of knows that he's not going to get an opportunity to play him in a crunch year, then I would say loan. Definitely find a good Premier League loan for him. Make sure that he gets 35, 36 games, starting week in, week out, get used to the Premier League, and come back absolutely refreshed. I've always thought, like, if the 2-year loan was sort of still available, I think right now it's not. The same that went with Andres Christensen, who went to Mönchengladbach and came back,
Yep.
winning player of the season 2 years in a row. I think that would have been ideal for somebody like Colville to come back with that 2 year spell under him, especially like 1 year in the Premier League, and coming back absolutely ready to challenge. I think minutes will be crucial to his development. I think the talent is there. I think his potential is clear enough for everybody to see. Like, there's been enough conversations to suggest that there have been about 30 clubs interested in him. So it's
Oh
just
wow.
evident that it's a matter of time. But if he's going to be in a World Cup year sitting on the bench, especially when you've got five subs, and you don't really see centre backs come off the bench, unless and until you're trying to preserve a lead. So, and if he doesn't start, I don't see Tuchel sending him on for the 72nd minute to try and like play 15 minutes, and it's not going to help his career. So I would say if Tuchel's got a clear idea, loan him for a year. Don't sell. We've got the contract situation in hand. Make sure that he gets a good loan, then use him next season. With Sar, I think it would be he's impressed. He's definitely impressed. Again, I think it would be up to Tuchel. For me, if it was a choice, it would be the best possible time to sell him because he's obviously played really well. You can use that to sort of tempt suitors into saying, look, he's regained his peak. Why don't you
Yep.
bid and we let him go for cheap? So I think it would be a sell for me. And Aspie again, same with Jessica's page. I think it's he's earned the right to go. He's a Chelsea legend in my eyes. He's won everything there is to win
Exactly.
with the club, and if he's going to be back home, closer to family, and probably a better chance to make the Spanish World Cup team. So I think it's a great move for him back home. So I would definitely tell him go with our blessings and make the move.
Makes perfect sense. Nick, over to you.
Um, yeah, I guess Colwell keep on the proviso we can give him supposedly what he wants in terms of minutes.
Yep.
If we can't, then loan. Aspi, I think sell. He wants to go, so let him go. And with Saar, I'm kind of leaning towards keep purely because if we lose Alonso and potentially lose Emerson, one of the two, we know Saar can fill in as a left back, and it may not be pretty, but again,
Yeah.
there's a lot of surgery required this window, and you then just asking us to do that one little bit more, one position more. If we let a couple people go, so maybe Saar could potentially fill in because we'll have to see. Because Alonso to Barcelona, we don't know what the situation is. Barcelona supposedly wanted him, but maybe he'll go, maybe he won't. Emerson, we might just be stuck with. Again,
Yeah.
he started last night in a back four, and if we want to play in a back four, he's maybe better suited for a back four as a left back. So we'll see. Saar is kind of one of those where I would happily sell or loan, but I think at the moment I'm kind of keeping him on the proviso until we find out what's clearer with Alonso
One
and
thing,
Emerson.
one thing that I would ask Nick though is we've seen Emerson playing left center back, so I don't think that's ideal at all. But
True.
because we have Emerson, I mean theoretically, he can cover the. I don't. I don't really. I don't like criticizing players, but I don't think it's ideal to keep him. But I think if I had to choose between Emerson and Malang Sarr, I would go for Emerson. So that's why, for me,
Yeah, I mean it's probably trash v garbage at this point between the two of them. To be really
Mm.
honest, I say that Emerson won a Champions League, so that's a bit harsh. But no, it's one of those two. Like, yeah, you don't want both of them around, but it's I say Sarr is kind of I would keep purely on the fact that what happens with Emerson. But as we've seen, Emerson Tuchel has liked in a left centre back role in the limited time he did kind of play that role before, and then yeah, it's a Sarr is purely dependent on what happens with Alonso and Emerson for me.
Makes sense. Arvind bro, over to you. So,
Was up to me. If it was up to me, I'll definitely sell both Amazon and Sar, and we'll keep Lyric Colville. Yeah, I know.
makes
I
sense.
mean, Emerson he was not disastrous when he played LCB, but still,
Yep.
I don't know how much we can trust these guys. And yeah, Colville, I think we will be able to provide enough minutes for him this season. So instead of him going to any other team and
Mm.
still waiting another year for developing, let us incorporate him to the current playing team.
Makes sense. And yep, interesting comment. CFC Central face reveal is like Rey Mysterio. Don't think it's happening anytime soon. But I think we made
Agreed.
the exact same comparison some time back.
No, I think I made this very clear. I mean, I would drive people off your stream if I revealed my face. I look like an upside down pineapple. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, he's fishing for compliments. He's a number one on Bombay Tinder right now, so no understatement.
I have a
Uh,
girlfriend. I don't need Tinder.
okay, rubbing it in our faces, nice. I think we spent a bit of time on defense right now, and everyone's made great points. And uh, I think the next item on the agenda is definitely midfield. Wing back, I think we can skip because it's pretty obvious, right? We have Reese, we have Ben Chilwell, who are like first choice, obviously, and we progress the ball so much better when they're there. And but we definitely need cover as well. We chased it. There were Denzel Dumfries, rumors in a while, and we'll try and come back to it once we cover midfield and attack. And so jumping straight into midfield, last season I think it was the most hotly debated position, right? There's one school of thought which says uh, why we leak goals in transition is because our front three can't hold on to the ball and we turn over the ball a lot in the opposition final third. There's another school of thought which says our midfield isn't mobile, it can't track runners, especially Jorginho. Name dropping at the risk of getting abused, but yeah. And there's concerns that he can't defend space as well as someone like maybe Declan Rice could. So, and just coming straight to you, going into next season, do you think we're well placed in midfield to compete, or do you think it's a glaring deficiency that we don't have a DM there?
I think it's a deficiency, but not necessarily a DM. I have a personal choice of the formation that I like and what I would ideally like to see. So I love the idea for a DM. I am with the people that rate Declan Rice. I think he's a very good player, so I would like for him
Same
to
here.
come. But at the same time, I think Tuchel needs to decide. So if he wants to go to a before, and if he needs a DM, bring a DM. If not, if his idea is to be a 3-4-3, that's fine. But even if it's 3-4-3, I think we need a midfielder still. So bring another creator in, depending
Exactly. Yep.
on
Yep.
the system that he wants to be his main system or whatever, or the flexibility that he wants to have with formation. Then you would look at the qualities of the midfielder that you want to bring in. But I think we need a midfielder in. We had the injury crisis. So if we have Kovacic, Georgie, and Kante, those are the three big names, let's say. I'm not putting Mount on as an attacker at this moment. I don't like it, but let's leave it at that.
Yeah.
So you have those three, and if one of them gets injured, then there's a lot of matches that are going to be played by the other two. And I think Georgie is a very good player. I don't agree with a lot of
Likewise. Yep.
the hate. So I think he's a
Exactly.
very
Yeah.
good player. But when he gets overplayed, then it's normal. The quality drops a lot because he's never going to be a destroyer type of midfielder, and that's fine. You can't ask him to be what he's not, but he has this type of quality. But what I think you need to ensure is that you have those players at the best of their abilities, and to have those players at the best of their abilities, I think you need to bring another midfielder in. And a lot of people talk about Conor Gallagher, and I like Conor, but I see him more as like a Barkley replacement than anything that would completely elevate our starting 11. So this is definitely a position that I would like to see someone in. So again, I don't have a preference exactly in terms of what midfielder I want to see in, because I think it would depend on the formation and other things. But yeah,
Yep.
I'm sorry if I'm being too like abstract, but
No, no,
it's
it makes sense. Yeah. It's a tough topic to be very specific on. There's certain profiles we miss, but yeah, I think you covered it pretty. So, just did I cut you off? Was there something else that you wanted to add? Or?
no, that was just it. I definitely think we need. That's an area that I'm not sure we're going to add anyone in. I think that, again, it's just my personal opinion. I think once we sort the center backs, we will look for another attacker. But I would like to see movement on the midfield area as well.
Makes sense. Central again coming to you. There's one question on Sergey Milinkovic Savage, right? And in general about our midfield. We've debated this multiple times on streams and offline as well. So creativity is definitely an issue at midfield. The amount of chances that our team as a whole creates is definitely an issue. Do you think we can look inside our squad for the deep midfield positions, or do you think it's like imperative we go into the market? I'm saying this because we tried Connor there. The first game he was good, but it wasn't against the highest level of opposition. Today, I think in build up he did struggle a bit. Mount did as well. So just trying to get your thoughts on this.
I think when you look at Tuchel and the way he set his teams up from his Dortmund days, I mean, he's never had a pure DM. You know, at Dortmund, he
Yep.
used to use Julian
Weigel,
Weigel,
yeah.
who's a deep lying playmaker, somebody who used to orchestrate on his own. Like Tuchel was extremely adventurous at Dortmund, so he would play something like a 3-1-4-2. So you would just ask one of your your midfielders to basically start with the centre backs and then move the ball quickly to the attacking third, where you'd had six players waiting to attack. From there, I mean, he moved on to Marco Verratti, who's obviously the best, I feel, at that orchestrating role. Somebody who's able to play either as like the six and the eight, where he's performed really well for Italy also. So I think it's just one of those things when you look at Tuchel's system and how he prefers to play. He obviously wants somebody who's first and foremost like secure in possession, somebody who's extremely good, intelligent in terms of distributing the ball, in terms of understanding where to build from and how you need to progress the play from like back to front. If there is a extreme spell of pressure, then you should have the intelligence to slow the complete tempo of the game down. And I think the only midfielder in our side who matches that description is Jorginho. So
Yep.
the only issue is, again, like most registas have this issue. Their brains work faster than their legs, and it's the same with Andrea Pirlo. It's the same with Jorginho. Most of them require support. You know, you need people who have to be on their sides, make sure they're defensively well covered. So I don't think that we need a DM as such, because when I talk about a DM, it's a purely defensive position. The position that we need right now is somebody who can basically contribute to like all three phases of play. If you're going for a midfield too, you need somebody who's able to do the defensive work, who's happy to create from deep. And like I said, Declan Rice is my first choice for that exact same reason, because he is somebody who's shown that he can, slot into centre back, offer you a progressive position from left centre back, make sure that when the play moves into midfield, he covers his full back, make sure he's very good on 1v1 defensive transitions. So you need somebody like that paired to a Jorginho or Kovacic or a Kante. You can't play any of those three next to each other, because of the pure reason that when it comes to winning the ball back, most of them try and press on the front foot, and you get exposed. So again, it's a systemic issue whether if we move to a back four or a back three, those things are also going to cause like separate issues, because if we are again staying with the back three, then we are one match short in terms of committing people to attack. And if you go with a back four, then do you trust Silva to basically make the same kind of recovery runs that he used to do at his peak,
Yep.
when he's especially holding a high line, at the halfway line mark? Somebody mentioned Sergei Milinkovic Savic. He's an interesting player. I mean, I think he's dipped a little bit in terms of his performances, but he still got 11 goals and 11 assists in the past season in this area. Somebody who can perform again well across all three phases, very strong in the air, good goal scoring midfielder, a lot of threat creator. And I think that's somewhere we've lacked compared to, say, a Manchester City. When you look at Bernardo Silva, when you look at Gundogan, when you look
My
at Kevin De
dream,
Bruyne. Yeah, I
Bernardo
mean, it's
Silva in Chelsea. Yeah.
the amount of like non-penalty XG that these guys generate, the amount of expected assists these guys generate. It's way off the charts compared to our midfielders. I mean, Kovacic is the only one who's shown some kind of progression in that regard. Kante a little bit. I would say when Kante is in attacking position, he's actually improved his game. Like basically that he does year on year. You put him anywhere and he learns. But I don't think we're still there in terms of getting a consistent threat. Again, this is a great midfield if you want to play, a Champions League guy, when you've got a Jorginho and somebody who helps you sort of maintain possession and make sure that you're starving the other team of the ball. It's
Exactly.
great, it works there. But in a league where you incentivize a draw, when a team is happy to sit back and collect 1 point against you, is a midfield like that good enough to break teams down? And the answer for me would be no. We need somebody to basically give you the option of pushing one more person in attack. And that could also happen if you say get a Jules Koundé and go two men at the back and push a third centre back up front, because Koundé tends to do that. He tends to go very advanced on the right hand side, and then you give Reece James and then you give Raheem Sterling the kind of freedom that they want on the right flank. Or you get a midfielder who allows the other number eight, if you pair him with, say, a Jorginho and ask him to pull the strings a little further forward, then I think it makes sense. But that's going to be key. I think it's up to Tuchel to decide what the balance of the side is going to be, because I don't know what our formation is going to be. We've played, a 3-4-3, we've played a 4-2-2-2. So what is it exactly going to be? Is it going to be a mix of both? And that's the big question.
About,
Yeah, Bro, go ahead. Yeah.
I do have one question actually. Does Ampadu have those attributes to put him as a double pivot? He does have defensive attributes, right? So the question is for CFC.
It's difficult, to be honest, Arvind, because I tend to look at him at his performances as Venezia, and he was somebody who played mostly as like the deepest midfielder in a three, somebody who was playing as a six, but had a little bit of support. But being able to move on from, he was, I think, averaging 32 passes at Venezia, to say a Jorginho kind of role where you're doing 75 passes in a game, somebody who's getting a high volume of passes. And obviously, you talk about the teams he's played for, Sheffield United and Venezia, you're not going to be able to make those many passes, and your basic premise is to make sure you're defensively solid, and he's shown he can do that. He can definitely play the defensive side of the game, but that happens probably lesser than the amount of times that you have to do something with the ball. It's 75 times that you have to distribute the ball well, that you need to have the right kind of pass, that you need to be able to avoid pressure. Can he do that? Maybe. I'm not sure. I haven't seen him perform that kind of DLP role for us or in the Premier League. He's played decent, but I wouldn't say that it's a sure shot guarantee that he can perform that role. And the only way of finding out is to give him the chance and figure out if he can do it. He's a centre back by trade, so he does have experience in avoiding pressure, but it's completely different when you're playing in midfield and you have to play with your back to goal. You have to receive without knowing who's pressing you. You have to make sure that you're avoiding pressure, distributing it to the forward line. So it's a completely different role, and I think it'll only come once he plays 5, 6, 7 games and we understand how well he does it.
Fair point, Central, and you're aligned on Ampadu as well, right? Syria definitely, totally different ball game. Whether he can do it receiving the ball under pressure and breaking lines, finding people between the lines is something we'll see only with game time. Nick, coming to you next, one of our favorite players and one player we've discussed in great detail, right? So Billy Gilmer was sent away from the Chelsea first squad and was told to train with under 23s. He did play a game, I think, against second tier US opposition where he was very comfortable in midfield and on the ball. And I think he fits a lot of what Central just described in terms of being able to receive the ball under pressure and sort of dictate play. So do you think there is still a pathway for him here, as in can he sort of work his way back into Tuchel's plans, or do you think the ship is sailed?
Well, I think it's quite a damning statement if you get sent to the under 23s while there are certain other members of
Exactly.
this
Yeah.
tour who are still getting minutes. Like, it's a tough one. We all know Billy is a talented player. We've all seen him perform at the highest stage. It's one of those where he's gone to the under 23s. Maybe a loan gets sorted. Let's be real. Chelsea have not handled Billy Gilmore well since his breakthrough in the 1920 season. 2021, okay, he stuck around, got a few odd minutes in cups, but he didn't really kick on. And then we sent him on a disastrous loan to Norwich. He's a player who needs football probably. You're looking at that Chelsea side, and that midfield area is packed. It's packed with players who Tuchel also probably knows and a lot better than Billy Gilmore. So I think for Billy's sake, as frustrating as a loan is probably for the best. It's just a question of, obviously, I think his contract is expiring in a year or two. So that's one to keep an eye on. But you look at that midfield depth, as we mentioned earlier, that main three, what I guess we'll have a slight advantage of is Jorginho won't be going to the World Cup. And I think a World Cup mid-season is actually quite a big kind of thing to focus on in terms of the squad and players we have, because we saw someone like Ruben Loftus-Cheek last year. I think played his most amount of ever games in a season for Chelsea and was a pretty good squad player. We'll probably see, he's very unlikely, I'd imagine, to go to the World Cup. So you may see that
True,
sort
yeah.
of period after where players are just come back from World Cup, they're a bit, fatigued, etc., where he really gets a run there. And it's just quite tough to really see necessarily where Billy fits into all, because I think he is a brilliant player, but we've seen Ruben last season. He's also versatile. We saw him fill in, he started, right wing back at the Bernabeu. We've seen him play sort of a
One
centre
one
back
one of
against
the best
Luton in the
players there
Cup.
too.
Exactly, one of the best players on the pitch that night. So
Yeah.
he's one of those um, players where he's one you want to stick around and keep around. Gallagher, you think, is one we keep around as well, and then you're looking at that main three as well. And again, if it's a back three, and we've got those sort of two in midfield, then that's two positions you're fine for. So again, it does become quite tough for him, to really fit in there. So it's a question for Billy of right now, I don't really see where that clear pathway is, and a loan is probably for the best of him. But it's a real shame because he is a player who we had a gem on our hands, who showed what he's
Exactly, man.
capable of, but we've not managed him great. His performances have probably dipped as well. But it's one of those things where ultimately he's probably needs to go on loan, and then we reassess, because again it's one of those things. While Jorginho and Kante are here, I mean, who knows? In a year's time, both may be gone, and then there is that
Exactly, yeah.
pathway there. And if he's had a really good season on loan somewhere, then maybe he's ready to step in. So it's just one of those things, about timing and what players are available and where they can fit in, etc. I'd love Billy to have this, big career at Chelsea, but right now it does feel like
Same.
he's, slowly fading down, falling down the pecking order there, which is a great shame.
Exactly. And I think there's a comment saying if RLC goes to Lazio for sure. There's two academy grads that I got emotionally attached to. They were Ruben Loftus-Cheek and then Billy Gilmer. Both haven't had the most, not the career I would have liked them to have. And if Billy leaves, it'll break my heart, man. I was watching him boss Everton and Liverpool in midfield back to back. Roy Keane, of all people, came out and said, world class player, world class talent. And yeah, I think that's just football. Things don't work out how you want them to at times. But hopefully, he has a great career here. Jess, again, let's do the same exercise. Keep loan and sell, but this time, okay, totally forgot. There's one other thing in midfield that I wanted to cover, which is Conor Gallagher, right? Great player, great talent. I think Vieira got the best out of him, which was in terms of he identified how much of a threat in the box Conor Gallagher could be, and all his tactics were to sort of get him in the box more often, combined with people like Oli Zaha and everyone else. And then his output is definitely testament to how good a player in the box he is. But I think how Tuchel has used him in preseason, especially, is like a total departure from that. Right? He's played deep midfield for us. We tried him at 8 today, but again, not the best performance. So, do you think it warrants an experiment? For us to maybe try him in deep midfield as one of the two next year, or do you think we push him as part of the front attacking three?
Oh, that's a very complicated question. I think Connor would be best utilized in the midfield three. I have my doubts if he would work in a double pivot. He has some similarities. People compare to him to N'Golo a lot, but I think sometimes that's just because of his energy, because he runs a lot and because he's always there to press. And I think Connor is great when he's facing towards the opponent's goal, but I think sometimes he has a problem finding a way to turn around and face the opponent
Exactly.
goal. So this is something that we definitely need. I think needs to work with him. I mean, I think he can help manage N'Golo's minutes because I will die on this hill. N'Golo Kante, he's still a world class player on his day, but
Likewise.
unfortunately, he can't. He won't be producing those types of performances every match because of his age and anyway. So I think he can help there. I don't see him as a starter. I would like to see him in the midfield three, but again, it's up to Tuchel. I don't know the formation that he's going to be playing in. But what I would like to see is trying to find a way for him to turn around. I think Vieira managed to get that in the first half of the season, but not so much in the second, which for me represented the drop in his numbers a little bit. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen. I will be very surprised if Connor is not in the squad because everything that I read, everything that I'm told is that Tuchel really, really likes him. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm intrigued actually to see how we're gonna see him. I also don't see him taking, let's say, Mason Mount's position. If you're seeing him as an attacker in a 3-4-3, so I think Tuchel's gonna, if he continues with 3-4-3, I think Tuchel's gonna try to fit him in on that double pivot. But I have concerns there. I'm not gonna lie.
Makes sense. And I think, yeah, my opinions would echo this almost to a dot. I think uh, a lot of what we saw today was he'd receive the ball pretty deep, he'd get pressed, and then sort of run into a blind alley, right? Which you don't want people in your pivots to be doing. You want them,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. One thing that I will add is I really like following the youth. I think that's clear now. I try to, that's my personal thing. I know a lot of people and don't, and that's also fine. But when you're talking about young players, you need to know that they'll be making mistakes. They're learning.
Exactly.
So you need to be open to that. So in my opinion, is about finding the balance, because this
True.
is Chelsea. We're talking about Chelsea. We want to be competing for the highest honors, and we should be competing for the highest honors. So it's not about putting, oh, it's the youth above anything else. But if
Facts.
employed correctly, it allows you to have funds for other areas where you can go for world class players, and you have a large number of minutes. You have cup games. You need to rotate the squad. It helps you preserve our world class players. So it's about finding that balance to get the maximum out of the squad. So I think there's space for him, but at the same time, I'll jump very quickly to Berto, but we can come back to Armando. But I'm just going to say, a lot of people are like, oh, he's our best player, just put him there. And I think he's fantastic, but he's not going to be solving anything. He's not ready yet to be solving anything. And I think that applies to the majority of the young players that we have. So you need to have patience with this, guys. And if you're not willing to have that patience, then it's hard to advocate them being in the squad.
Makes perfect sense. I think I got distracted for a second. So yeah. Uh, and yep, I think we saw the same with Trev Chalobah as well last year, right? So we saw him come in, one of the best players in the Super Cup, went on to have a great start in the Premier League, but there were phases in the league where he did struggle a bit, and that's to be expected with any young player. And I think Central touched on that in his video analysis of Colville as well. That when young players do come in, you can't expect them to be flawless from week in week out. Even John Terry had his struggles, I think, initially at Chelsea. So I think that's a very fair point there made by Jess. So Central, coming to you next, I think we'll run the keep loan sell exercise once more, but we'll make this a little controversial this time. Jorginho, Kante, and Ruben Loftus-Cheek, keep loan sell. Go for it.
Oof, okay, this might. I mean, it's a little difficult for me to sort of come up with a response for that, because I think all three players are pretty well liked. I would say Jorginho is a cult figure, but the other two are pretty well liked. I would say Ruben would be a sell for me. I think it's been
Break.
past
Uh-huh.
that point. Yeah, I mean it is. He is a clear sell for me. When I see him play in midfield, it's the same mistakes that I see over the past couple of seasons. It's just he's not secure in possession, doesn't know how to use it well, and he's always about carrying the ball. He always tries to break lines and always tends to do the same mistakes whenever there is an easier pass, and in a bit to escape pressure, he just tries to dribble his way out and then he loses it. And it's just been a constant occurrence, and I think Tuchel must have seen it, and it must have gotten on his nerves. Like, he's not that kind of player to be able to play in that double pivot or at that double central midfield partnership. He's done well in other positions where you don't have to utilize the ball that well. Like for example, the right wing back position, and he even played at centre back last season. So I think it
He
was
did, yeah.
just Tuchel trying to sort of give him, some kind of a disciplinary lesson, saying, okay, try losing the ball at centre back and see what happens.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
maybe it was a way of sort of disciplining him and telling him that, look, when the stakes are high, don't make mistakes, and he still made the same kind of errors. I think he's again great as a number 8, somebody who can carry the ball through lines. Um, After the Achilles injury that he sustained in the US postseason game, I don't think he's ever been the same kind of player. Maybe he's getting his pace back, but a lot of the things I look at and I'm saying, okay, the best thing that I see for him this season is back up to Reece James. I don't see him in midfield. I don't see him getting that position back. So it would be a sell for me.
Makes sense. Nick,
Um,
over to you.
I think I'm I'm boring, but I'm free keeps. I'm free keeps. I don't think we get rid. This is Kante. Just so I'm clear, Kante, Jorginho, and RLC. Yeah.
Yeah.
This window, yeah, free keeps, because there's a lot of other areas that need addressed, and you're then asking to address one more. Like the only way pro is okay. Ruben goes, then maybe Billy comes in and takes his role, but genuinely, like Ruben Loftus-Cheek played what 40 odd games for us last season. He wasn't amazing. He wasn't awful. He was solid. He put in a role. You've got to remember as well, we've got 5 subs next year in the Premier League, not 3. Someone like Ruben can make, it probably makes it easier to sell. You sell the idea to players. You can stay, you'll get minutes because Ruben can, because there's 5 subs now as well. He can have a role coming on. We could easily see him, have a role in this team. As I mentioned earlier, he's versatile. And I said, like, yeah, he's not lived up to and reached the levels we hope he would. That's absolutely fine. But if he is happy having a role similar to last year, I don't see any reason to sell him, to be honest. So I'm keeping him. And I know Kante and Jorginho both have a year left on their contract, but we can't get a better midfielder than them this summer. And also, it's 2 weeks till the season starts, and you don't want to be losing one of those now. So no, for this season, all 3 of those are keeps for me.
Makes sense, and I'm probably aligned there as well. All 3 players that I love, but hopefully we keep them. So sorry again, guys. I actually have a bus to catch. So this is, I think, as far as we discussed today. But Jess, I'll come to you again. We'll get your thoughts on midfield, and then we'll call it a wrap for today. So
Who should we keep and sell?
Kante, Jorginho, and
Georgie and
Arthur.
Kante keep 100%. Same as Nick. 2 weeks to the season, you don't want to lose those players. Ruben, I'm undecided. I like what Nick pointed out. The 5 subs is very good, but for me, it would be dependent on whether or not we're going to bring in that extra midfielder. So if we bring in a midfielder in, then I'm okay with letting him go. If not, then keep.
Makes perfect sense. And yep, exciting times. I think the next 2 weeks before the season starts, definitely a lot of movement in the transfer market, and we'll get to, hopefully we, Chelsea is able to schedule more games, and we get, minutes into these players' legs and get them into rhythm for the season. And again, I have a bus to catch in like 10 minutes, so let me rush to the bus stop. Thank you so much, guys, for coming on to
Thank
the
you for
stream.
having
This was
me.
fun. This was so much fun, and hopefully we get to do it again. Think we can schedule one and discuss attack in detail if you guys are up for it. So yep. Thank you so much, and everyone who joined in the comments as well. Thank you, and we'll see you soon again on Chelsea Currents. Thank you so much, guys.
Take care. Don't miss your bus.